After the rain has stopped, a silver lining appears on the horizon, the messenger of a new day. The creatures of the night withdraw. The moon disappears behind the horizon, and the stage is set for a new day in the Alps of Berchtesgaden. As the grey veils of the night give way to the new morning, rays of sun warm the blooming mountain pastures. Beetles, butterflies and other insects have hatched out of countless cocoons and chrysalises. It's summer in Berchtesgaden National Park. Long ago, caterpillars transformed into these delicate Apollo butterflies. These rare butterflies with cherry red spots flutter angelically across the alpine meadows. The warning call of the marmots can be heard at the slightest disruption, a typical sound on the mountain meadows, just like the ever-present hum of the bumblebees who like to pay a visit to the alluring sticky sage. Just a few weeks ago, the calls of the marmots would have spread panic among the herds of chamois. But since they are 2 months old now, the fawns have outgrown their last potential enemy, the golden eagle. Its main prey is now marmots. Marmots keep the vegetation short around their burrows. This creates ideal conditions for the silver thistle. Its large floral stars only open up when it's warm and dry. The rattled grasshopper appears. The little males have just one goal with their striking aerial maneuvers, attracting the attention of the females. The sight of sweeping wings is supposed to lure out the females who are unable to fly, posing a challenge for rivals. Once a female has been identified, the rattled grasshopper prepares for landing. He covers the last few centimeters to his chosen target on foot. Then it all happens very quickly. A mighty karst plateau lies deep in the heart of the national park. The waves of this sea of stone are created from limestone. This is the land of Arolla and mountain pine. The cones of the mountain pines open up on warm, dry days. Although their winged seeds already fell away in winter, the pine cones continue to open over several months when the sun shines. Arolla pine cones, however, remain firmly closed, never opening. Outside help is needed to release their seeds, and this comes from the nutcracker. The nutcracker should really be called a pine jay, since without this clever corvid, the pine could not survive. Trees and birds belong together, just like peas and carrots. Not every animal can build a winter stockpile, but the nutcracker is a master of storage logistics. After a few well-placed pecks, the cone is open and the seeds disappear one by one into his throat pouch. If the bird thinks he's not being watched, he puts the seeds in the ground. Year in, year out, each nutcracker creates around 10,000 of these hiding places, and hence plants up to 100,000 pine seeds under the earth. With such an enormous amount, it's not surprising that this industrious bird forgets a hiding place or two. A whole new generation of pines then germinates from these seeds. Even the oldest pines in the national park began their life in a forgotten nutcracker depot. When night falls over the sea of stone and the warmth of the closing day disappears into space, cold air masses stream from all sides into a dip in the national park that has now become famous. Lake Funtensee, Germany's own pole of cold, minus 45.9 degrees Celsius, was once measured here in winter. In late summer, the fruits of the rowan tree ripen. Despite persistent rumors, they are not poisonous. Their red color attracts birds as if by magic, just like these black grouse. But there's another reason why the grouse gather here. It's the arena for their mating display. The autumn mating display is a very masculine affair for the black grouse. Hens are nowhere to be found. While the older generations confidently defend their usual positions, the newbies need to first secure their courting places for the next spring. A young bird that has not yet fully molted seems almost out of place in the company of these seasoned males. There are still between 1,000 and 1,500 breeding pairs of black grouse across the whole of Germany, most of them in the Alps. A visitor makes itself known on the black grouse meadow. At the beginning of September, a man drifts across the pastures, searching for precisely the one thing that the grazing livestock have shunned all summer. The terribly bitter gentian. The power of this fine herb has long since disappeared from the leaves and shoots and is packed into the rootstock. And that's exactly what this visitor is going for. Only a section of the fleshy root is harvested when gentians are dug up. The rest remains in the earth to recover for 7 years. However sustainable this form of cultivation may be, the marmots are suspicious. Only when his bag is full does the intruder disappear and take his loot to the place of his choice, a small mountain hut. Once the mash from the roots has fermented for 6 weeks, it goes into the burner. The operator's distilling rights date back to the 17th century and still apply today. The essence of the root only becomes apparent after double distillation. Once the process is complete, the refined distillate of the gentian needs to mature in a wooden cask for 5 years before it can be enjoyed. It's all a question of taste. The very bitter substance that the cattle avoid appeals to people who enjoy this fine liqueur with an earthy, bitter flavour, a unique specialty. There's a negative atmosphere amongst the marmots due to the common discord which often comes from living in close quarters with others. This usually only amounts to harmless scuffles within the family. At the beginning of October, the days are once again shorter than the nights. A sea of mist accumulates as cold air gathers in the valleys in the final few mild nights. The white streams glow ethereally in the light of the streets and villages. From above, the canopy of stars engulfs islands of cloud in blue light. Alpine ibex walk across steep cliffs with the assuredness of sleepwalkers. And, just like in waking, the mist draws away, revealing the enchanting Lake Königssee. Preparations are being made on this Alp for a spectacle that is completely unique to Bavaria, the so-called ceremonial cattle drive of a somewhat different kind. The farmers have already led their cattle to the water before the sun has risen. They walk along the narrow bank of the lake until they reach their first stop. Half an hour later, the herd has reached the harbour. The journey isn't over yet. The cattle now continue by boat. As soon as the last cow is on board, the raft heads for the other end of the lake. The vehicle consists of two boats with a wooden pen installed on them. Up till around 1930, the cattle were led on a 7-hour-long march over the mountains. This transit is much more comfortable for everyone. The cows are eagerly awaited by a crowd of onlookers. The climax of the animal procession comes after they're unloaded. The colourful jewellery is ready and waiting. The cows' headdresses are made of twigs that are decorated with bright ribbons and flowers made of coloured wood shavings. It takes several weeks of detailed work for the herdsmen to make these decorations. Finally, the festive procession starts to move towards the home of the cattle. You can hear bells ringing everywhere in Berchtesgaden now. Cattle are being led to the valleys from many other Alps too. Quiet sets in the mountain forest. Over centuries of forest cultivation, in many places deciduous trees have become rare. The forest in the central area of the national park has been left to itself for over 30 years, and the former spruce forests have gradually transformed into a colourful mixed mountain forest once again. A mountain lake lies flat as a mirror. In autumn, chars gather in the shallow water. It's spawning season, and the little fellows' bellies glow bright red. After several days, the seed is sown, and the fish once again spread out into the deeper parts of the lake. One fish here lives in waters 10 times as deep, never leaving the twilight zone or entering the shallow water even in the spawning season. And it's precisely that one that the only fisherman on the lake has his eye on. This form of fishing has existed since the 16th century. Ever since then, the char has been considered a fine delicacy. These small fish are only taken out of the lake between September and December. The nets are sunk in the water to a depth of around 50 meters where the char lives. The char is much smaller and less colorful in contrast to its relatives from the neighboring lake, but it has bigger eyes. Fishing at the lake has a long and rich tradition. Master fisherman Thomas Amwart is the third generation in his trade. Alongside making the catch itself, the task of preparing the fish also rests in his hands. The fishery smokehouse is almost 400 years old. Here the fish are placed by hand individually on thin hazel skewers and stretched out. Then they go into the wooden smoking crates in rows. Hours later, an unmistakable aroma fills the small room. The larches in their golden coats herald the final act of autumn. The three-toed woodpecker is a skillful beetle hunter. He cleverly lifts little pieces of bark from the spruce trunk to get at the delicious larvae of the bark beetle. It's time for the marmots to carry out their final bits of building work. These young animals are about to experience their first hibernation. The stars stay moving across the sky for longer and longer, and less sunlight illuminates the mountains. An atmosphere of departure lies in the air. Soon the alpine ibex will make their way into their winter quarters on the other side of the national park's border. As soon as these mountain pastures are covered by snow, the dry grass is out of reach for the chamois. It only recently became known that the alpine ibex was wiped out by huntsmen in the Middle Ages. It was, however, reintroduced here around 80 years ago. It's estimated that about 150 animals populate this area today. The black giant weaver lives in the shady ravines. He's not much of a hunter and is more interested in dead flesh. The dead woodlouse is quickly taken apart by its large claws. Elegantly, a female moves closer. The male can't miss an opportunity like this. Unlike a spider, the giant weaver has a penis. And now it's going to be put into action. The male can stop worrying about reproducing now. It seeks out shelter in a very special place. Black giant weavers like to live in cool, damp ravines. The spray from the waterfall doesn't bother them. Here, they're safe from predators, and they can find enough to eat. This is the highest waterfall in Germany. Its waters plunge almost 400 meters into the lake, which is surrounded by colorful mixed mountain forest. The city of Berchtesgaden lies at the foot of this stunning mountain backdrop. The city was established in 1102 and is the gateway to the national park today. Berchtesgaden is a magnet for both nature lovers and mountaineers. Many of the 7,500 residents live from tourism and thus also from their national park, even now as the ski season begins at the start of winter. Thick snow clouds accumulate and unload their white cargo over the peaks and ridges. Green spruces and mountain pines disappear under a thick layer of snow for many weeks. The marmots will sleep until next April in their warm nests made of fragrant mountain hay, living on their fat reserves. The waterfalls are frozen into icy garlands and shine with a pale glow under the starlight. The herds of chamois have regained their thick winter coats, the perfect protection against the icy cold. The long black outer layer is warmed by the sun, and the woolen undercoat preserves the body heat. The chamois' wide hooves are ideal digging tools for uncovering the grass beneath the snow. Although it is still the mating season, none of the younger males dare to mess with the old buck. He will soon banish them, laying the foundations for a new generation of chamois. the Edelweiss has scattered its seeds. The alpine chough has raised its offspring. In the national park, the circle of life is closing and is ready to begin again, just as it has since time immemorial. At the lake, the ice is advancing unstoppably now. Golden eagles spiral up above. Down below, the fishermen's houses are besieged by a circle of ice. This mountain and the other peaks nearby will be wearing a white bonnet right into the following summer. Heavy frost paralyzes nature, and few life forms stir in this world of ice and snow. The alpine ibex have left, and even the chamois avoid the deep snow. But that's not the case for everyone. Some people have long since been yearning for snow. The national park is a paradise for ski mountaineers. Many pass through here to enjoy some of the most beautiful routes in the whole of the Alps. Once they arrive at the top, it's time to free themselves of their earthly shackles and head down into the valley, free as a bird. Off the beaten track of the groomed slopes, on untouched snow, the descent begins through the mountain wilderness, a unique experience of nature. Thousands of ski mountaineers are attracted to the national park in winter, but only those who stay on the marked routes avoid causing problems for the animal world. Birds also struggle to survive in winter. Only a few stay faithful to the peaks. The snowfinch is one of them. Now he can move on foot again, looking for food from branch to branch. The nutcrackers can no longer live on what they can find above the blanket of snow. The Arolla pines take care of them. They are the most frost-hardy trees in the Alps. Now there are holes in the snow at the foot of the robust trees. The year before, The nutcracker built up stocks of pine nuts in the forest that give him a reliable food source right into spring. The pine nuts that the clever bird doesn't manage to find again germinate, and a new generation of pines starts to grow. The nutcracker plants his very own pine nut grove. When the sun shines brightly again over the lake in early spring, its rays drive the ice away into the most shaded corners of the deep valley. But soon it will disappear from there too. Even the animal residents of the national park can sense the changing of the seasons, just like the wood grouse. His distinctive mating call echoes through the forest once again. A new year runs its course in the mountains and valleys of Germany's only alpine national park. The cameramen spent countless days and nights tightly packed into a camouflage tent, traveling up and down the mountains numerous times, carrying a heavy load, in often unpassable regions, yet in one of the most beautiful and wild landscapes in Germany. How did these films come about? Well, that's another story completely.